Thank you for joining us today as we announce very serious and disturbing charges against Bedford County District Attorney William Higgins. I'd like to start by thanking a few of the people who made today possible, including members of the Pennsylvania State Police throughout Troop G and their commanders, who work closely with law enforcement officials from various departments during the course of the investigation. Members of the Pennsylvania State Police Bureau of Criminal Investigation, who worked tirelessly to conduct this case, which was extremely complex in the course of several years. The citizen members of the investigating grand jury who heard testimony and examined evidence for this case. And finally, the entire team of the Office of the Attorney General who partnered with us in the very early stages of this investigation through its culmination. They will be responsible for prosecuting this case and completing the process of seeking justice for the public and everyone who was victimized by the defendant's actions. This is a troubling case that demonstrates a pattern of abuse by the top law enforcement official of Bedford County. The defendant took advantage of his position to access confidential, law enforcement sensitive information, which he used to manipulate women with pending criminal cases in the county. Moreover, the defendant manipulated the legal system to gain leverage over vulnerable women. He thwarted drug investigations by refusing to sign search warrants and offering overly lenient plea bargains to women he targeted and pressured them to lie during the course of this case. Beyond this blatant misuse of the legal system, the defendant in this case put the lives of the police and confidential informants at risk when he repeatedly leaked their identities and the details of their investigations to drug dealers so they could avoid apprehension. Again, the defendant's subversive goal was to gain control over women to avoid prosecution. Thankfully, no one used that information to harm investigators or witnesses, but we know from experience this could have ended tragically. We hope that today's announcement of charges and some of the details that we're able to share about the depth and breadth of this investigation begins the process to restore the public's faith in the office of the Bedford County District Attorney. We want all Pennsylvanians to know that the Pennsylvania State Police and our law enforcement partners will vigorously investigate cases of public corruption and crimes committed by elected officials, regardless of their prominence or their position. For more about this case and the next phase of the prosecution, I'd like to introduce Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro.
Good afternoon. Before I begin with my remarks, I'd like to acknowledge some of the individuals standing behind me here today who have really done yeoman's work on this case and each and every day work hard to make Pennsylvanians safe. I'd like to thank Major David Kane of the Pennsylvania State Police, Major Douglas Berg, Major Maynard Gregg, Captain Jeffrey Fisher, Lieutenant Bradley Hershey, Lieutenant Leo Hannon, Sergeant Jordan Spallone, Bedford County Sheriff Sharwin Reichelderfer, Bedford County Sheriff Deputy Diane Nelson. I'm also joined today by three key members of my team who are with us: Senior Deputy Attorney General Tom Muchler, along with Executive Deputy Attorney General Jennifer Selber, and our first Deputy Attorney General, Michelle Henry. I'm here in Bedford County today to announce criminal charges against Bedford County District Attorney William Higgins. Today, as a result of a grand jury investigation, District Attorney Higgins was charged with using and abusing his public office to get sexual favors from female drug dealers throughout this community. Higgins protected known drug dealers from criminal prosecution. He revealed the identities of confidential informants to individuals under active investigation by law enforcement, and gave lenient sentences to women with whom he had sexual relations. He also protected their friends in this process. District Attorney Higgins was motivated by sex. He traded his power and law enforcement authority for sexual favors and violated his oath to the people of Bedford County. He compromised the security of his community and the safety of confidential informants. These are not charges based on minor transgressions or the testimony of one individual. These are charges that result from a thorough probe conducted over the course of several years. Throughout the course of our investigation, we learned of at least 9 instances during which District Attorney Higgins provided the names of confidential informants to known drug dealers whom he was having sex with or to their friends or associates. In addition to providing those names, Higgins arranged for some of the women to receive lighter sentences and favorable bail amounts. In one case, he actually instructed a probation supervisor not to pursue a probation violation by one of the women who he was manipulating for his own sexual gratification. The grand jury learned that District Attorney Higgins requested sexual photographs from at least 2 women during the same time frame that he provided them with information about the cases law enforcement was building against them. These women later agreed to cooperate with investigators, providing testimony to the grand jury, and at times using electronic recording devices to document conversations with District Attorney Higgins. Higgins' conduct to manipulate women for sexual favors was a complete betrayal of the good citizens here in Bedford County. They elected him to enforce the law and keep them safe. Instead, he violated the rule of law and compromised their safety and well-being. Today, with our great partners from the Pennsylvania State Police, we are ending this culture here in Bedford County, and we are going to begin the process of working to restore the trust in the Bedford County District Attorney's Office. Let me tell you about 3 incidents that I think paint a picture of who Higgins really was all these years. Our investigation revealed an astonishing lack of ethics and integrity illustrated by District Attorney Higgins over the course of several years. While his overall conduct was certainly egregious, 3 incidents in particular illustrate the utter lack of concern for his official office or for the rule of law. Here's the first example. In June of 2015, Pennsylvania State Police attempted to obtain a search warrant for the house of a female drug dealer in Bedford County. District Attorney Higgins refused. He refused to authorize and approve the search warrant, even though 2 separate eyewitnesses reported a large amount of heroin and cocaine at the drug dealer's residence. The female later testified before the grand jury that she had a sexual relationship with District Attorney Higgins, and that he stopped at her Bedford County, and he stopped her in the Bedford County Courthouse, this courthouse right here, and told her that he had, quote, saved her ass, close quote. When she questioned him about that comment, Higgins admitted that he had refused to sign a search warrant for her home. The second incident happened in August of 2015, when District Attorney Higgins revealed the identity of a confidential informant to a different female drug dealer, who later declined to sell to that informant as a result of the tip that she had received from Higgins. This individual also testified before the grand jury that she did not make the sale because District Attorney Higgins verified that the person attempting to purchase drugs was in fact a confidential informant. The third example that paints this disturbing picture of what went on here in Bedford County involved in a separate incident. A separate female drug dealer contacted Higgins after receiving a grand jury subpoena. District Attorney Higgins actually advised her to lie to the grand jury, to lie under oath to the grand jury, and deny the existence of a sexual relationship between the two. District Attorney Higgins requested the three main female cooperating witnesses not speak to investigators in this process and to conceal the relationship with law enforcement. One female testified that she knew Higgins was asking her to, quote, lie on paper, close quote, and lie to law enforcement. This is unconscionable conduct by a district attorney, someone whose job it is to uphold the law, not to obstruct it, not to advise people to lie in the process. Yet that's exactly what he did. As a result of this abhorrent conduct and terrific work done by the Pennsylvania State Police and the Office of Attorney General, District Attorney Higgins was charged this morning with obstructing the administration of law or other governmental functions, official oppression, recklessly endangering another person, intimidation of witnesses or victims, hindering apprehension or prosecution. As a result of these charges, District Attorney Higgins this morning announced that he had resigned his official position. District Attorney Higgins was arraigned this morning by District Judge Kathy Calhoun, who set bail at $50,000 unsecured. It is important to note that Mr. Higgins waived his preliminary hearing. These arrests are the result of collaboration with our partners in the Pennsylvania State Police, and again, the effective use of a statewide investigative grand jury. I want to again thank the Pennsylvania State Police and the members of the grand jury for their commitment to this investigation. I especially want to thank Tom Muchler, the Senior Deputy Attorney General in my office, along with our Executive Deputy Attorney General, Jennifer Selber, and First Deputy Michelle Henry. You know, former District Attorney Higgins thought he was above the law and that he could get away with affording special treatment in exchange for sexual favors. Well, I'm here to remind the good people of Bedford County and the people of Pennsylvania that no one is above the law, and that this office applies the law without fear and without favor. As Attorney General, I will not allow any individuals in positions of power to abuse their public office, and we will continue to prosecute anyone who violates the law and continue to place an emphasis on rooting out public corruption across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is the second district attorney we've arrested in a year. We've arrested a sitting county sheriff. We've arrested a sitting police chief. We will not relent in our pursuit of public corruption here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The people of Bedford County, the people of Pennsylvania deserve better than people like Bill Higgins. They deserve better than the representation they got here in Bedford County. And thankfully today we can begin to turn the page on this chapter, begin to heal and restore the public trust. I want to note that this investigation is very much ongoing. And we encourage anyone who has experienced or witnessed similar behavior at the hands of District Attorney Higgins to come forward. We want to hear from you. You do not need to be scared, and we want you to share your story with us. To that end, I've set up a special hotline that rings to the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office, so you can share your information with us. That number is 332-7252. You do not need to be scared. Call our office, share that information. We will continue to pursue justice in this case and hold former District Attorney Higgins accountable. And with that, I'd be happy to try and answer any questions.
Attorney Shapiro, a number of all the charges on the sheet that we got were January 1, 2014, that's how they were labeled. Did all of them happen within 2014, or were there multiple years, multiple cases that they applied to?
These are multiple years and multiple cases. Mark?
Why is it significant that he waived the prelim? Has he admitted to any of this conduct, and did he know this arrest was coming ahead of time?
I think it's always significant when a defendant waives a preliminary hearing, and I think beyond that, you should seek comment from Mr. Higgins as to what his intentions may be.
What happens to all the cases he's prosecuted here over the years? Are they at risk for any questions there?
I think that's a question for the District Attorney's office here under its new leadership.
Might other charges stem from this investigation?
As I said a moment ago, this investigation is very much ongoing. It's why we set up a special hotline. We want to hear from others out in the community who may have important information here. And based on that information,
I'm talking about other officials. Other officials might be.
As I said, the investigation is ongoing. Yes, Mark.
I don't know that much about it, but it's my understanding that there was an investigation in your office, by your office into him in maybe 2008. What are the facts as you understand it about what occurred then, and is the behavior sort of sounds similar to what's going on here now?
I can tell you
Allegations here.
I can tell you that this investigation is completely separate from the investigation that apparently went on back in 2008.
You mentioned the charges and incidents from 2015. Are you able to go over what the specific allegations were for 2014?
You want the specific allegations by year? Is that what you're asking?
If possible, yeah.
I'm happy to get you that from our office. We'll
Okay.
be happy to lay that out for you.
Was there something that originally tipped off police to this, and the kind of thing that you got one tip about one particular case, and then that led to sort of a slew of other things? Is that kind of the way that this went?
I guess all I'll say at this point, our investigation began together with PSP back in 2015, and actually began as a drug investigation.
How's the trial process going to work here? Is it going to go before county judges? What's the next step?
I think that is a process that is it's underway now. Today was the important first step in that process, and again, he waived his preliminary hearing, and as for the timing of the next steps, I don't know that at this juncture.
A number of these cases have been high-profile arrests, have been Republicans. Is there a concern that your critics could look at this and say, well, you're just going after Republicans?
I made arrested Democrats in the city of Philadelphia in a public corruption case recently. We apply the law without fear, without favor. We follow the evidence wherever it leads and to whomever it implicates.
Who's currently running the DA office right now?
Leslie Childers Potts will be acting first Bedford district. Will be the acting district attorney until a special election can be held, I understand. But I would encourage you to speak to Bedford County officials about the specifics related to that. My understanding is Higgins resigned effective immediately earlier today.
Okay, is it possible that he himself was involved in drug dealing?
As I said, our investigation is ongoing, and we put forth the charges that we've been able to make in this case at this time.
The 3 instances that you had brought up during your speech there, are those the only 3 instances that we know of right now, or are those the ones that stand out?
No, they stood out, and I think they paint the broader picture of who Higgins really was and what he was up to in this community. Okay? Thank you all very much. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Huh? Oh, great. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I should have done that.
Oh, certainly. I'm so sorry, I missed you.
Sorry.
Go right ahead.
Yep, we're good.
Jill Sainsley, I think address first.
Steve Passarello, STEVEN-PASSARELLO.
So if you can first kind of just make a comment about, what went on today and kind of your reaction to it.
Well, what went on today was Mr. Higgins was arraigned early this morning in front of District Justice Calhoun on the charges that were filed by the Attorney General's office in this case. He was released on $50,000 unsecured bail and sent a letter of resignation in this morning.
What's, your reaction to it? What's, his reaction to it?
Well, my reaction to it is it's a nice story that they've told from the mouths of corrupt and polluted sources, convicts, drug dealers, and people who they think are credible that have no room to throw stones.
The AG mentioned that it was important to note that he waived his prelim today. What do you think about that? What's the significance there?
There's no significance to that. People waive their preliminary hearings all the time. There is a strategy behind why we waived our preliminary hearing today. Preliminary hearing does not determine if somebody is guilty, just determines if there's enough evidence for the charges to be sent to court. Credibility at a preliminary hearing is not at issue. This case is based upon credibility. Credibility is for a jury.
Why do you step down if you're saying he's innocent?
I'm saying that Mr. Higgins pled not guilty today, maintains his innocence, and we are progressing to trial. He resigned today solely for the reason that he cannot effectively perform his duties based upon the allegations raised against him and based upon who raised those allegations. More specifically, people who he works with every single day. He felt it was in the best interest of Bedford County and in the best interest of his family to resign. That in no way is an admission of guilt.
So do you feel he has a trust issue then with the state police and those that he worked around?
That's an understatement.
That's an, okay.
So these are people lying about him. None of this is true.
These allegations, they are just allegations. Okay? Simply because somebody's charged does not mean that they are guilty. He has pled not guilty to those charges, and he maintains his innocence. You have to look at the source of the allegations. You have to look at credibility of that source. You can have 5, 6, 7, 10 witnesses, but if they're not credible, then their allegations are not credible.
Why did he suppress the search warrant? That doesn't have to do with...
Sure it does. Any district attorney has the discretion to sign a search warrant or not sign a search warrant if there's enough probable cause, or make a determination whether there's enough probable cause or not. That probable cause has to come from who he believes to be credible witnesses. He did not believe the witnesses in the affidavit of the probable cause or the person who presented that affidavit was credible. Therefore, it is within...
He didn't believe the person who was presenting the affidavit was credible, meaning a state police officer.
Meaning a state police officer.
I know you said he's maintaining his innocence, but anytime in the future, would you and he consider a plea deal of any sort?
Well, I can't comment on plea negotiations. That's a violation of the ethical rules, but anybody who knows a criminal case knows that during the entire case, there's always ongoing discussions about how to resolve it.
Did he testify before the grand jury?
I'm not privy to indicate whether or not that occurred.
So if he did, he didn't tell you that?
No, I'm not allowed to testify or to talk to you about what occurred at the grand jury.
And, okay, but you're his attorney, right? Could you give us your name and spell your name, please?
I am his attorney, and my name, to be spelled again, is Stephen, S-T-E-V-E-N, P-A-S-S-A-R-E-L-L-O.
Can you talk a little bit about, obviously this is getting out into the community, so trust may go down just from what they're seeing. Can you talk a little bit about his response to kind of regain trust back into the community?
Well, his initial response was his resignation. I mean, he felt that he could not serve the community that he was elected to serve because of these allegations and because of the individuals he has to work with every day couldn't effectively do his job. He's focusing now on his family and focusing on these charges.
Can I just get quickly at the difference between the charges and the idea of corruption of an official and the idea of criminal conduct? Is he denying, obviously, all of the criminal conduct, but is he denying that he engaged in anything corrupt or anything untoward or anything that a public official abuse of power?
Well, those are in essence the charges.
Sure.
So if he's denying the allegations in the charges, he's definitely denying that type of behavior, correct?
Well, can you speak to, or has he talked about other people being implicated, other officials being implicated in this case?
Any discussions between myself and my client are privileged, so I can't discuss those. I have no information from any other source that other individuals are.
How's he responding to all of this?
He's devastated, obviously. You know, he's performed his duties for, I think, 18 years maybe here. You know, the one comment made by the Attorney General that he provided lenient sentences, if you look at the specifics of that, that's untrue. The sentences handed down for those individuals that they specify were sentences within the standard range of the guidelines, which is where a court would sentence anyways. So to come in here and say that he curried favor by giving lenient sentences is not true. It's not the case. The sentences are within the standard range of the guidelines.
Now, he can give his recommendation, however, a judge is the ultimate one that sentences any individual.
That is correct. In any plea deal, in any sentence, the judge can always reject a plea deal, even if the district attorney recommends a certain sentence. So obviously, the players in those cases, the defense counsel, the district attorney, and the judge felt that those sentences were an appropriate sentence for the facts of those cases. And again, it's important to note, the sentences were in the standard range of the sentencing guidelines, which is where defendants are normally sentenced anyways.
Was he aware of this investigation before this morning?
We were aware of the investigation.
Why didn't he resign from district attorney before then now? Before this morning?
I don't have an answer for that. We were aware of the investigation for a while now.
Would he get a fair trial in Bedford County?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Most likely, I'm assuming there'll be a motion for a change of venue filed by one or both sides in this case.
We touched on the sentencing, but I asked the Attorney General this too. In terms of all the cases he's prosecuted here over those 18 years, you said, I mean, what does he have to say about the integrity of those cases, that still stands?
He stands behind every one of his prosecutions. None of his prosecutions does he not stand behind. You know, the people here involved in this case, it's not like he dismissed the charges, it's not like he threw them out, it's not like he prosecuted them. One was a felony burglary charge. The person pled to a felony burglary charge and got sentenced within the standard range of the guidelines. That's not a lenient sentence.
How do you feel about when they said that they have audio of
They allege in the affidavit. Now, you have to understand, all I have is the affidavit of probable cause, so I can only speak to what I read in that. They indicate that they have some type of wire. I have not heard it yet, so I really can't speak to it.
Isn't that illegal in the state of Pennsylvania, wiretapping?
We'll make sure we take a look at that in regards to any pretrial motions we may file.
Over the years doing stories with Bill, regardless of what it was, he had never had a really good relationship with the state police. You'd call Bill and be, oh, the state police aren't getting a hold of me, they're not giving me information, and there was always a tension between the DEA and the state police. Do you believe this is like some sort of retaliation for their relationship, or?
You would be correct in the sense that there has not been a good relationship between the district attorney and the state police because he demanded that they do certain things the correct way, and demanded that they have the evidence before it's charged. And I cannot speak to motivation, but I think that relationship does speak volumes to why the charges were brought.
Are you, do you have any knowledge of how long Mr. Higgins has not trusted the Pennsylvania State Police and people that work around him every day in the courthouse? Is this like an ongoing?
It's been an ongoing
issue with him,
especially with certain specific members of law enforcement, and ironically, certain members of law enforcement are the ones that are in the affidavit.
So are you guys alleging a conspiracy among certain members of law enforcement who had an axe to grind or a bone to pick with the district attorney?
At all. I'm stating.
Well, I'm just asking because you're saying, you know.
I'm just stating the facts. The facts are there's not a good relationship between Mr. Higgins and the state police. There's not a good relationship between Mr. Higgins and certain specific individuals that are identified in that affidavit of probable cause. The conclusions you draw from that are the conclusions you draw.
Now, you said about credibility. What are you and Higgins going to do whenever victims start coming forward because of his misuse of power? Whenever it came down to cases with victims and him retaliating against the families that pushed him to do his job, because you're going to have that also.
Well, I don't have that yet. I don't know anything about what you're talking about.
You're going to have that after today, because we're one of those families.
Ma'am, I understand that, and I'm sure that we'll deal with that when it comes.
When's he due back in court?
His formal arraignment has not been scheduled yet.
Okay.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, it's perfect.